Hello, folks, and welcome once again to another edition of the Legislature Today radio show in a brand new week, third week of the 63rd Legislative Assembly. I'm Scott Hennon. Dale Wetzel, the managing editor of the Great Plains Examiner and Great Plains News, is here, and we have a busy night with lots of guests to introduce for you here on the program. Introduce our guests in just a moment. Also want to tell you that at the Peacock Alley American Grill and Bar, where we are coming to you live and direct, it's BAM night. BAM mugs are $1 off. BAM is an acronym for a large mug. I'll leave that to your imagination. I know Dale. I can see Dale's wheels turning right now.
Yeah, the first word is big and the last word is mug.
There you go. Exactly right.
The A is we'll leave to your imagination.
Anyway, they're $1 off those big mugs, and also.
And it is a big.
It is a big mug. Yes, exactly right. Which is one of the reasons it has that acronym, BAM. Anyway, also $1 off the burgers, and the burgers are really good too. So check those out at the Peacock Alley American Grill and Bar, the home for the Legislature Today radio show. This program on Monday night is brought to you by the Association of Oil and Gas Counties. They'll be joining us as well this evening, so lots to cover. First of all, let's talk about day one of week 3 of the legislative session. Dale, a little recap of what happened today.
Well, today we had a big blank measure. It's a $1 billion thing. It is a proposal to suspend the income tax, the North Dakota income tax, for 2 years. That would mean $1 billion less collected by the state treasury, and $1 billion more in the pockets of folks who pay North Dakota income tax. There's quite a lot of resistance to that, including resistance from the Greater North Dakota Chamber of Commerce, which thinks that it is not a balanced approach to cutting taxes. They're supporting an alternative bill that cuts income taxes by a bit and makes it a permanent tax cut rather than a temporary suspension of the income tax entirely. And also it has some benefits for property taxpayers, for people who pay business taxes, that sort of thing. The bill that was heard today just applies to individual income tax. It doesn't apply to corporate income tax or other types of taxation such as property tax. And one of the things that came up in the hearing was that are people really screaming about their income tax? Bob Stenjum, the former Republican majority leader, used to tell me that everyone complained to him about property tax, but the only one who complained to him about his income tax was his spouse. And so he used that as a barometer for public opinion and said, basically, we've got an income tax. It's not that much. People don't complain about it, and so therefore let's concentrate on what people do complain about. The sponsor of this income tax bill is Scott Lauser. He's a Republican from Minot, a state representative. He thinks of it as kind of a test drive of a way to try out what it's like to live without the state income tax without actually going whole hog and repealing it. There was also a separate tax bill that would give a tax credit to people who have suffered losses because of the flooding 2 years ago and help them, compensate them for their expenses in recovering. And I guess the last thing I wanted to mention was the tanning bill. We were talking earlier about the thrill, if that's the word, of trying to repeal a section of law. Well, this would repeal the section of law that regulates tanning salons in North Dakota. And there are a number of regulations that affect tanning salons. Specifically, if you're younger than 14, you can't go into a tanning salon or to tan without a note from your doctor and without being accompanied by a parent or guardian. If you're younger than 18, you have to have your parents' or guardian's permission. You also have to receive a bunch of information about the effects of UV rays on your skin and that sort of thing. And also you can't tan. Once you go into the tanning salon, you can't go back there for 24 hours. And the sponsor of that bill, the bill to repeal tanning regulations, is Dan Ruby. He's a Republican from Minot. He essentially thinks that the law is unenforceable because how do you know if someone is going in to separate tanning salons 18 hours apart or 6 hours apart or whatever? And also we don't regulate people, standing around at the beach or, mowing the yard with their shirt off, and so why is it that we want to regulate tanning salons? Well, the Medical Association and the Health Department presented some rather interesting testimony about how UV rays, specifically those delivered by tanning beds, can increase one's risk of getting skin cancer. So we'll wait and see where that goes, but it didn't look too promising from where I sat when I was in the hearing today.
Interesting recap. Tax bills and tanning bills.
And tanning bill.
How about that? Yes. Well, let me introduce our guests, and we'll get going on the question of the topic at hand. 3 members of the Senate Judiciary Committee joining us tonight. Senator Carolyn Nelson of Fargo. She has been in the Senate since 1995. Previous to that was also in the House in 1987 and elected again in 1993. She's here along with Senator Stan Lyson, who's from Williston. He's a retired sheriff, a member of the Judiciary Committee, as I mentioned. Also happens to chair the Natural Resources Committee. And Kelly Armstrong is here, who, in addition to being a member of the Judiciary Committee, is vice chairman of the Transportation Committee. So 3 senators to tackle an issue about some changes that others are saying we need in different parts of the state. Dale Wetzel, managing editor of the Great Plains News, here to ask our senators the questions.
Yeah, we should add as well that Mr. Armstrong is a defense lawyer in Dickinson, his attorney, and so he has firsthand experience with how difficult or easy it is to get a court date. And I wanted to start with you, Mr. Armstrong. What sort of ramifications do you see from the shortage of judges in western North Dakota?
Scheduling, primarily scheduling, trial scheduling. Judge Nelson testified in front of the Judiciary today. A lot of clients, especially on the criminal side, are spending more time in jail than they need to spend in jail. Just the caseload, and I'll say primarily in the Northwest. I would say my judges in the Southwest District, and they're not really my judges. The judges in the Southwest District do a really good job, but our caseload is up exponentially since 2008, and we have 3 judges out there, and I think Williston's caseload is higher than ours with 2 judges.
When you say that people are spending too much time in jail, how does that happen?
You get arrested for any particular type of offense, and there's a bond situation, and depending on your income level or not, you can. I mean, there are certain conditions you have to meet until you get what's called pretrial release. And one of those conditions is bond. So if you can't afford to post your bond, you stay in jail until your case is heard. That is taking longer and longer all the time. Whether or not they're going to go to jail after the case is heard is a different story, but they are spending a lot of time in jail before a guilty verdict is ever adjudicated against them.
So in other words, these people are presumed innocent and they're sitting in jail.
Yes.
Because they can't afford to get out.
Yes.
Until they're.
And there's other considerations too, but it's just the length of time between the start of a case and the end of a case is getting longer and longer all the time.
What we should clarify right away is that what we're talking about here is a bill that was heard in the Senate Judiciary Committee this morning that essentially would authorize 3 new judgeships for North Dakota. 2 of them would be in northwestern North Dakota in the Northwest District, which is in the northwestern corner of North Dakota. It includes Williston and Minot. And a 3rd judge would be in the city of Fargo, where the Cass County Courthouse was recently renovated and expanded to accommodate another judge. Senator Nelson, you're from Fargo. Could you just try to tell us how this is important to the city of Fargo and the general region there?
I think it's important because when we consider the 42-judge limit that we had back in 1995 when we went through court unification, the population of the state was something like 630,000 people. It's now at 700,000. There's a need demographically. In the city of Fargo, West Fargo, in that area that we're talking about, population's gone up 45,000 people. We get some very high-profile cases, and you usually read about them on the front page of the forum. Those types of things take time. And the judges were saying that sometimes, well, Judge Fair came in today and talked about her first day on the job, and she had 78 cases. That's absurd. I mean, for us legislators, we come in and we spend almost a week just learning what the system is, how our computers work, and all those types of things. And to come in the very first day on the job and have 70-plus cases is just unreal. You also have in Fargo a large number of immigrants. The number of cases we have involving people from different cultures, the number of different foreign languages we have, the number of interpreters we need. These all take probably 2 to 3 times as long as a normal case would take. And so over the years, we have always needed that extra judge, but until the addition to the courthouse was built, we didn't have the space to have that judge. Now that we have the space to have the judge, the Chief Justice is saying, now is the time for Fargo to have that.
Would you feel comfortable, whatever your case might be, would you feel comfortable having your case in front of a judge that had 78 other cases that day?
No. I certainly wouldn't. I would want them to think that that's the most important case they're going to hear all day, which I know it probably isn't isn't the case. And in Fargo, we also have the advantage of having municipal court judges that take some of the Class B and lesser things off of our platter. But there are still a number of high-profile cases that we get and take a lot of time.
We have here tonight Gail Hagerty, who's a South Central District Judge. She's also the president of the North Dakota Bar Association. She is a former Burleigh County prosecutor. I'll mention her family situation. Her mother is probably one of the more famous people in North Dakota because of a restaurant review she wrote about the Olive Garden.
She was actually famous even before that.
Well, yes, she was, but I'm talking about nationally.
Stratosphere now.
I'm talking about internationally famous here, Scott. Because she wrote a very straightforward review of the Olive Garden restaurant, as is her wont, and it caught fire, and she was on CNN. She's just been famous as famous as Elvis almost. And her husband is a Supreme Court Justice, Dale Sandstrom. Then we have Jack McDonald, who is an attorney in Bismarck. He was the chairman of a State Bar Association task force that looked into the difficulties that the oil boom have presented to the judicial system in western North Dakota and across the state. He also represents media clients. That's how we came to know each other, is that when I worked for the Associated Press, he was my lawyer and the lawyer of a number of other media folks. Welcome, Jack. Could you talk about how this report came to be and what the conclusions were?
Well, basically, Dale, the Bar Association, of which Gail is president, became concerned early last year, actually, that with all the talk of the oil boom, and during the legislative committee hearings that I was attending, almost every interim committee hearing, there were some representatives there from western North Dakota talking about infrastructure needs in western North Dakota, whether it be roads or pipelines or like electrical lines, school buildings, gas companies, whatever it was. It was just infrastructure. But it came to be that nobody was really talking about the justice system. And as attorneys, the Bar Association was hearing growing tales and anecdotes about what was happening out there. Shortage of judges, you can't get court dates, you couldn't get trial dates, clerks' offices were flooded, you couldn't file documents, you couldn't get your probates done. Judge Hagerty, as the presiding judge of the South Central District, said that they were experiencing some of that same thing here, is that they were experiencing an overflow from the oil patch because of those problems. So we said that what we needed to do was present some information to the legislature that would be more documented than just the stories we heard. And so we formed the State Bar Association of North Dakota. Judge Hagerty formed this task force of several attorneys and judges and citizens, legislators, and we held 4 hearings around the state, 4 hearings in Minot, Bismarck, Dickinson, and Williston, and took testimony from everybody and anybody who wanted to come. There were about 2 or 3 hour hearings. They were held in the courthouses there, and we took transcripts of those. We have written transcripts. From that, Judge Hagerty worked and prepared this report. And the report tried to put into evidence in a relatively short frame what we felt was needed out there. And one of the key elements that we recommended was the increase of at least 3 new judges out there to deal with some of the problems. And that's just the start.
And the Senate Judiciary Committee is looking at a bill to add 3 new judges to the system. 2 would be in the Northwest District, which is the northwestern corner of North Dakota, and 1 would be in Fargo. Judge Hagerty, what are the real world consequences for folks who are in the court system if there aren't enough judges and court personnel to handle the work?
Well, you've heard justice delayed is justice denied. We are having problems with scheduling. People aren't getting into the courtroom. We have some problems that kind of go along with that. We found that there was a terrible shortage of indigent defense attorneys. So we're having problems at a lot of different levels. But we need to have the clerical people. We are a system that operates through electronic documents, and we need to have people to put those documents into the files. We need to get them to the judges. We need to get cases scheduled. There are problems with jails being full on weekends because people can't make bond. Trials are delayed. Hearings are delayed. The problems seem to kind of snowball.
What is the importance of time to a judge in doing his or her job?
Well, of course, we can do a better, more thoughtful job if we have time to look at files before we go into the courtroom, if we have time to do more listening. Our job is really to listen. We need to stay relatively focused, but when you have to move a large number of cases through, you can't give each case the same attention.
Brady's the Deputy Executive Director of the Association of Oil and Gas Producing Counties.
Brady, why don't you explain to us what the Association of Oil and Gas Producing Counties is and why it exists, what it does?
Sure, Dale. Actually, that's a pretty easy one. I get asked that question quite a bit. The North Dakota Association of Oil and Gas Producing Counties is made up of 19 oil and gas producing counties in western North Dakota. We also represent the cities and school districts within those counties. Our overall mission is to represent their needs as related to oil and gas development in the West and make that information public and well known to area legislators as well as officials throughout the nation.
And what are their needs?
Well, I can honestly say that one of our primary needs is infrastructure development at this point. We have a need for housing development as well, and everything that goes along with that, water, waste disposal, and so on.
What do you do to apprise legislators of what your concerns are, and what do you do to try to make sure that something's done about them?
Well, like I said before, public information is kind of our specialty, where I'm a registered lobbyist with the association, and my mission is basically just to bring the information to legislators so that they can make informed decisions on investments back to western North Dakota.
Tell us about your own background at the Capitol. You used to work for the former Majority Leader in the Senate, Bob Stenjum, and you've been a legislative aide. Could you just talk about your background a bit?
Sure. Yeah, I graduated in December of 2010 from the University of North Dakota. After that, I worked for the Senate Majority Leader as the staff assistant during the 2011 biennium. And during that session, it was pretty educational, really. I learned a lot about the behind-the-scenes action that happens in the legislature, and I'm really able to apply that to this position with the association.
When you talk to your friends about what was cool about your job, presuming that you thought it was cool, what did you say to them?
I said, first of all, it was a pleasure to work with Majority Leader Stenjum. He was a very inspirational man. He always knew how to get things done and to do it in a way that was positive for everyone. He was a real role model, and I really respected being in that position to learn from him. Besides that, I'd say that was the one and the most cool part of that job.
What did you learn about how things work in the Capitol, how things get done?
Well, first of all, the majority leaders and minority leaders have a lot of influence in terms of where certain legislation is placed. Of course, that has an influence on what ultimately gets decided. Reality, though, I mean, when you have the governor's budget, the legislature pretty much hashes it to death and then puts it back together piece by piece. And that was something that I found fairly ironic when I got done.
Gentlemen, sorry to report that our connection did not improve with Mayor Johnson and Dickinson, so we're going to wrap up that conversation and move to our next guest, Mary Massad, the Director of the Southwest Water Pipeline Project, who's on the line now, Dale.
Ms. Massad, could you explain to us what is the Southwest Water Pipeline and what communities does it serve?
Mary, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Okay, now we can hear you.
Ms. Massad,
Okay.
could you explain to us what is the Southwest Water Pipeline and what communities does it serve?
Well, the Southwest Pipeline Project is a project that is built, owned, and operated by the state of North Dakota. State Water Commission administers the Southwest Pipeline Project. The Southwest Water Authority is the entity that's in charge of operations, management, and maintenance of the pipeline project on behalf of the people of the state of North Dakota. We currently We currently serve 31 communities, more than 4,600 farms and ranches. We serve 2 rural water systems, and our population has grown to more than 50,000 people.
You're listening to the Legislature Today radio show. We are coming to you from the Peacock Alley, downtown Bismarck. About 10 minutes to go in this hour, brought to you by the Association of Oil and Gas Producing Counties. Brady Pelton, the Deputy Executive Director of the association, is with us tonight in the questioning. And our guest is Representative Gary Sukut, who represents Williston, Vice Chair of the Industry, Business, and Labor Committee. Brady, any questions for Representative Sukut?
Representative.
Careful, Brady.
I will tread carefully. I will tread carefully. Representative, can you talk a little bit more about the housing situation in the Williston area, and particularly District 1?
Well, housing, of course, has been and still is a major issue. And we've had a tremendous amount of building. I'm getting dry here, so I'm drying up. Can I steal a little bit of your water?
Dale is kindly, anything for the guests, right, Dale?
Of course.
Yes, exactly.
I noticed you didn't offer him your water.
Well, I didn't think I had much left there.
I appreciate that.
Not a problem.
We have in the last couple of years built between 2,000 and 3,000 apartments, and there's probably another 1,000 online to be built. Home-wise, within the last couple of years, we have built somewhere between 500 and 1,000 homes. And a lot of those are close to coming online. The apartments, one unfortunate, I guess I would mention, one very unfortunate thing that has happened is a lot of the existing apartments that were in the community have been purchased. People had an opportunity to sell their properties at a good profit, and as they sold them, of course, the new landlords coming in raised the rent in order to compensate for their new investment. And unfortunately, when they raised the rents, we had some folks that were forced out of their apartments, and that part was has been very sad, but overall, we're finally getting to a point to where we're starting to have open housing, and we're looking forward to that point, because as that finally we get to the point to where we're built up to where we're somewhat stabilized, we know that the rents are going to start to come back down to realism, and what we're needing in that housing is we need the moms and the kids to be moving to Williston now, because we really don't have that secondary workforce that we need to provide the retail to come, and that's going to be the last thing to show up, and we're thinking that's the next thing now that's going to happen, is we're going to start to see some retail. But the housing continues to grow, continues to build, and we hope we're getting closer to addressing that problem.
Could you tell us what does a 1 or 2 bedroom apartment go for in Williston, and what does a 2 or 3 bedroom home go for?
You're on the low end. You're probably talking $1,200 to $1,500 a month, for a single bedroom apartment.
And that's the low end.
That would be the low end.
My goodness.
Yeah, and then you get up to the other end, and you're talking at $2,000 to $2,500 for a bigger apartment, and you get into renting a home, and you could be looking at $3,000, $3,500. It's expensive.
What did it cost before the boom? Like a 1-bedroom apartment?
Well, you could find 1-bedroom apartments before the boom at $400, $500, $600 a month.
Mm-hmm.
Representative, one other thing that our association is keeping its eye on pretty constantly is the Housing Incentive Fund, and the governor recommended a $50 million continuation of that Housing Incentive Fund. Would you say that that's helping out in the Williston area at this point?
Well, it has helped. It very definitely has helped, because we have three projects in Williston, a 74-plex unit that is using those funds, been supported with those funds. We've got an old junior high school that is now being renovated for low-cost housing for seniors, and that's using that fund. So that fund, I think that fund is working, and hopefully people are figuring out that they can take their state income tax dollars, put it into that fund, and use it as a credit, and build that fund up. And definitely, it's very beneficial for all of us to use to build low-cost housing, and that's statewide.
Could you tell us what it's like to live in Williston now versus what it was like 10 years ago?
Frustrating.
How so?
We're excited about what's going on out there. It's just exciting to see all the growth, but it's not without its frustrations. The traffic is absolutely unbelievable. We're used to being able to go from A to B without any interference at all. Well, now going from A to B, you're taking different roads and different streets because the traffic is so heavy that you can't get on to some of the streets. So the traffic, I think, has really created a tremendous amount of frustration. And then, we still have the retail to take care of our normal population, which was 14 to 15,000 people. Well, now we're talking about twice that many people. We still have the same retail services, so people are frustrated with that. We've got a lot of eating and restaurants that have now started up, which does help, but all of the rest of the retail has not shown up yet, and that's an area of frustration for people also.
We've been speaking this evening with Williston Representative Gary Sukut, who is a Republican from Williston, the heart of North Dakota's oil boom. We've also been speaking with Brady Pelton, who is the Deputy Director of the North Dakota Association of Oil and Gas Producing Counties and a native of Dunn Center, north of Dunn Center. We'll talk to him later about his strawberry blonde hair, maybe. And that's all. Thank you for your time, gentlemen, and we look forward to speaking to you again about as these bills that you mentioned move forward.
Thanks for having me.
Brady, we'll see you next week.
That sounds great. Thank you, guys.
Very good. Enjoyable conversation as always. We thank our listeners as well for tuning in tonight. Dale, have a good evening.
Thank you, Scott. Same to you.
Another hour in the books of the Legislature Today radio show. This hour brought to you by the Association of Oil and Gas Counties. Remember to join us live and on location when you're in Bismarck-Mandan, Monday through Thursday nights for the Legislature Today radio show from the Peacock Alley American Grill and Bar. And join us online at GreatPlainsNews.com. All of the programs of the Legislature Today are archived there. You can also watch our live webcast of the event as well. Or listen, right here on 550 K-Fire, our flagship of the Legislature Today radio show and our affiliates, AM 1100 The Flag Fargo and AM 1090 The Flag in the Bakken.